Hello, guys.
Welcome back to the Outspoken Podcast, episode 2.
Yeah, this is the second episode. We're so happy you're here. We're so happy.
We
Period.
are, in general. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
We're happy.
Thanks for coming. I think I said that already, but just thank you.
Yeah, we love you guys.
Yes.
And today's going to be so fun. We have so much to talk about.
It's going to be a little bit longer than our last episode.
Mm-hmm.
So buckle up.
And for good reason.
Okay, well, let's get right into it.
Okay, let's do it. We're excited because today's episode is going to be so much fun and so good. And we're going to be talking a lot about Utah and the state of Utah because for some reason, everyone right now is fascinated with the state of Utah, actually for a lot of good reasons. Well, some good and some bad. And that's kind of what we want to talk about today because we both live in Utah right now. And I was raised in Utah, and
I just moved to Utah last year in 2022. So I guess 2 years ago now.
yeah.
For school. And I had been to Utah, visited, but never have really lived here or seen a lot of it. So it's been a lot of change in the past 2 years, I guess.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so
we'll
we
get
both
into that.
have like different perspectives, but a lot of this podcast is going to be about other people and their opinions too, because we've been able to, talk to a lot of people and get their input to talk about.
So thank you. If you sent in some stuff, we're going to get to as many as possible. There was a lot that were the same, so I kind of just compiled them just to take up less time, so I wasn't saying the same thing 50 times. But yeah, I think we have a great representation of what was said. So thank you. We love you for doing that.
We do.
Okay, so we have a few little disclaimers. I know we don't need to do disclaimers. We have the right to say whatever we want. But since we are going to be talking about Utah and the pros and cons of it, we just want you to know that we love you. We're not targeting anyone from Utah. If you do any of the things that we say, or if we say something in a more negative light, like we're not trying to like be rude to you. Like we love you and we fit into a lot of the stereotypes. We have the Stanleys. I mean, it's all of us. We're all Utahns at heart, I think. And there's just like good and bad everywhere. Like I could list all the pros and cons of Idaho where I'm from, and you can do the same, and I wouldn't be offended because that's just how it is. But we want to talk about it. It's going to be kind of fun, I think. There is like a lot of cons, I'll be honest. We're going to talk about them because I think it's really important too. But we want to stay positive and not just be like little negative Nellies out here.
Yeah.
Just keep those things in mind as we go about this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm with you. I think a lot of the submissions we got, like there definitely was a lot of people who submitted cons, and we ourselves have a lot of mixed feelings, but also I love Utah. Like I will just say that right now. I
Same.
really love living here, and there's so much that I love about it. So we're excited to kind of cover all aspects of that, because Utah is like one of the top 10, I think, growing states right now. A lot of people are leaving states and coming here, specifically California, which is interesting. The majority of people leaving California are coming to Utah. Utah's like been trending on social media, whether it's for good or bad reasons. It does get a lot of attention. So we're excited. And one thing that obviously makes like the culture here a little bit more unique is the church. And when I say the church, most Utah people will understand, but for those maybe listening who aren't familiar, the most prominent religion here is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so obviously a lot of people's opinions about the state and the culture like are kind of connected with that, because a lot of the culture here is so interconnected with the church. we both have different experiences and similar experiences as well with the church. But for the sake of just our personal privacy, we're not going to go like super in depth on all of our personal feelings and opinions. Again, there's good and bad everywhere, and there's good and bad in everything and every organization as well. But we're not going to dive too deep into that, but we will touch on some of the things that people shared with us and their comments, and just be honest about the way that we see things. So that's just another little disclaimer before we
Thank you for
jump in.
saying that. That was so well said. Perfect. I love that. Thanks, babe.
Of course.
Okay. Well, let's just jump in.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Hunter mentioned earlier how so many people are moving to Utah, which I'm so fascinated by.
Yeah.
I kind of felt the same thing in Idaho. Like when I was in high school, it was like booming a lot. Like tons of people were moving to Idaho too. And I think it's just the smaller populated states are just starting to get more.
Yeah.
People are starting to move out of the bigger cities, want to settle down more maybe.
Yeah.
But Utah specifically, I think there's a lot of more interesting reasons.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the beauty and the nature is one. Like, we were just looking at random, like, Utah rankings and facts, and it was like the 5th most beautiful state, the 6th most outdoorsy state. And I would say, like, being from here, that is true. I've visited a lot of places and seen a lot of beautiful things, but one thing about Utah that I love is it has so much diversity as far as the actual scenery goes. There's like almost everything here. And so I think that's appealing to a lot
Yeah.
of people for sure.
Yeah.
But what else? I'm curious, what else do you think? Like, what other reasons do you think people would be coming here?
Yeah, there's lots of space.
Yeah.
You can have a big old house and
True.
not a lot of neighbors. I think the cost of living is a lot cheaper here.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it being a college student.
True.
But yeah, I think just generally people can sell their house in a different state and buy something nicer or bigger here, which is very appealing, I think.
Yeah. And I will just say this, like, for a lot of, we're obviously going to get to a lot of cons, so I'm doing my best right now to hype up Utah because there is so many great things. The economy here is actually incredible for business owners, small
Yes.
business owners, entrepreneurs. They thrive here, and a lot of companies are making waves that are founded or based in Utah, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
definitely, like, business opportunities in Utah are really, really good, and that's attractive to a lot of people.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a second and talk about trends and social media in Utah because
Okay.
I think that is definitely creating a huge pull.
Yeah.
At least not maybe all the people moving here, but just like we've mentioned, like there's just such an attraction and like infatuation with Utah on TikTok,
Yes.
Instagram, like just in general. I think people are so fascinated with it, which I think is so funny and cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess so we were just talking to one of our friends before we started recording, and she was talking about the Stanley Cup.
These bad boys. If you're listening to the pod, you can't see, but on YouTube.
You can hear my ice though.
Yeah, on YouTube, we are holding our Stanleys. Because if you have been on Utah TikTok at all, or if you're from Utah, or have even visited Utah, you probably know exactly what we're talking about. And even not at this point,
They're
most
they're
people
just-
probably know what we're talking about.
I've seen so many celebrities on social media with their Stanleys, and I'm like,
Yeah.
it's so fun. I love them. It's really changed my life. I'm not even joking. Okay, but she was telling us that Stanley, like the company, literally discontinued this version of the cup. It's like the big 40 ounce with the handle. They discontinued it. And these 3 girls from Utah went and said, we have to bring this back. It's going to be so big. They put in their own money, brought it back in all the colors, and kind of did like all the marketing and stuff. And what was it? Like 834 million last year on just this cup.
Yeah.
Just this version of the Stanley.
Yeah.
It's like insane. And that was started in Utah. So
Yeah. No, it is really crazy. And yeah, I'm so curious to look up more of the specifics of that story because she just briefly kind of told us like the gist of what he just shared. But at the end of the day, these things, if you've been on TikTok, like they have blown up. And like people are asking why, like what makes them so special. I actually don't know, but I will just say that I did not start drinking water consistently until I have one of these. Like,
no,
this
really
is my source of hydration. And yes, it is such a big stereotype here, but yes, I don't care. I will be walking around with my Stanley. I will get
As
a new
you
color
should.
of my Stanley probably every year. I
Yeah.
don't know. They're just awesome. So
They're
this
good.
is
That's our
not sponsored
plug.
by Stanley,
Yeah.
but maybe they will want to.
Coming
after
up, I don't
this.
know. Reach out.
Yeah.
Okay. And just other trends in general. We were also talking about how just like everyday trends used to come from the major cities in the US, LA, New York, whatever. But like really a lot is starting to come from Utah.
Yeah.
It's just like the grasp that Utahns have on social media, TikTok especially,
Yeah.
is insane. Well, I didn't realize like all these people that I knew from social media, I'm like seeing them in real life out in the wild here.
Yeah.
And so it's super interesting. I don't know why, but I
Yeah.
think it's definitely something to note.
For sure. I think if there's one thing that Utah has excelled at compared to other states is like, social media, using social media and utilizing social media as a tool to grow a brand or a business, like influencers. There are so many that come from Utah
Yeah.
and so many that do really well. And there's going to be a lot of opinions on that too, like Utah influencers and the pros and cons of them, because there's been some that have had a lot of scandals and sketchy things too. I don't know. Utah has been in the spotlight for good and bad, again, just like everywhere and everything. But it is interesting that Utah has so many people like that.
Yeah. So let's change direction just a little.
Okay.
We are going to share a few of our favorite things / places in Utah.
Yeah.
So we both chose like 3 or 4, and we're going to just go back and forth and share.
Again, we're keeping the positivity going here at the beginning.
Okay, so I'll start. I'll do
Okay.
my first one.
I'm excited.
Okay, Provo Canyon. I've mainly only explored Provo Canyon because that's close to where I live. But it's just so beautiful. I like hiked Temp last year. So amazing. Like every season, it's like breathtaking.
Yeah.
The fall especially, obviously, just because of all the colors. But it's just like I had never seen that in real life. Like it was literally like picturesque
Yes.
everywhere you look. Love it. And
I
it's
love
so
that.
close. And there's so many canyons, obviously, just like down the strip. But yeah, and they're probably all beautiful. But Provo Canyon has a piece of my heart.
Good, as it should. Yeah, I love Provo Canyon. And there's a specific spot. I was going to use this one, but I'm like, this spot doesn't have a name and I can't even really describe where it is. And so I would feel bad telling everyone how beautiful it is and then not being able to go there. But it is up Provo Canyon, and it's just like you take some offshoot road and you go really far. But it ends up just being like this grassy field up in the mountains. And at sunset, it is so pretty. But
Cute.
there really is just so many places up there to explore.
Yeah.
My first one, this for a lot of Utah people especially, these are going to be like maybe the basic things, but if I was not from Utah and listening to this, I would want to know these places. So the first for me is Lake Powell. Lake Powell is out of this world. It's talked about a lot, but when you're actually there and experiencing it, and like, Lake Powell at night, it's so pretty. And for those of you who don't know what it is, it's just like, it is a lake. It's a giant lake, but it feels more like a big river. It goes through all these like red rock canyons. It basically looks like Mars. The Kardashians have spent time there, so you can check out their little
And
posts about
I've
it.
never been to Lake Powell.
Babe, we will go
So-
this summer.
We're going.
Yeah. And then he'll give you a review on if
Yeah.
I'm right or not.
Yes, as a non-Utahn.
Yeah.
Okay, my second thing, I don't know if this is a good one, but I love all the little artsy stores in Salt Lake.
Cute. So good.
Recently for my birthday, we went and stayed in Salt Lake, and I brought him to some of these like cute like antique furniture and like furniture designer places.
Yeah.
And they're just like so cute, and like all the, I don't know, like I just love going and like walking through little shops.
Yes.
But like it's just so fun, and I feel like Salt Lake has a lot of that type of thing,
Yes.
which I love.
I completely agree.
So,
I think this actually goes back to like the trend thing too. I think like thrifting culture in general is really strong in Utah. Like
yeah,
that's
true.
something that is like pretty trendy. But it's not just clothing, like you say, like especially in the Salt Lake area, there's so
Yeah.
much like antique shops and little things. And it's so cute.
It is so
That's a good
cute.
one, babe. My next one is, again, one that a lot of people know, but it is just so pretty. It's Tibble Fork Reservoir, I think. Yeah. Anyway, it's up like American Fork Canyon, I want to say. And it is stunning. It's like one of the lakes that you picture in the mountains with like all the green pine trees, and it's just stunning.
Love
And so many
that.
people go to take like their wedding pictures or engagement pictures there because it is beautiful. But you also can like go camp with your friends and swim. And I've done a little bit of all of that, and so it has a special place in my heart.
Cute.
And if you haven't been, go to
I
Table
haven't
Fork.
been. I
Go
haven't
in
been
the
to any
summer.
of these places.
Okay, we'll go this summer.
Okay. Little Sahara is my next one. I had to think about how to say that because sometimes I say that name wrong. But I went last year. I'll keep it brief. It was beautiful, crazy. I felt like I was on a different planet at sunset. Like it's literally stunning,
Yeah.
and it's just like in the middle of nowhere, just like a bunch of sand. What?
Yeah.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Love it there though.
No, it is amazing. And it's funny for me to hear that just because I grew up so close to it. And so we would go there all the time, like camping. And so I'm used to it. But if I really think about it, you're right. Like it does not feel like
Yeah, it's just wild.
here on this world. It's just sand. It literally is just sand, but it's like so pretty, the waves in
Yeah.
the sand. Anyway, that is a great one. My next one is Park City in general, but like the mountains and Park City Main Street and the shops. Like
So
for a
cute.
lot of people, if you've heard of Utah and know like a little bit about it, you probably know of Park City. Utah's also like, I think the number 2 state for like winter sports and skiing. And Park City is like kind of one of the main places, or like the most luxurious place, I guess to do that type of thing. I actually don't ski or snowboard. I would like to, but I never have. But
Which is wild for a Utahn to say.
yeah, but I think people would be surprised how many of us are like that. Like I've had
yeah.
that conversation with so many people here where it's like, I know it's crazy, I don't do this. And I'm like, no, actually I don't either. So there is a lot of people who don't, but it is really good from what I hear. But even without skiing or snowboarding, Park City, love.
Yeah,
It's top of
same.
my list. There's so much you can do there without doing those things.
Yeah. Okay, so my last one was kind of that too. Like Midvale, Park City, just like all the wintry fun activities. There's like Soldier Hollow. It's like
Yeah.
sledding, like on inner tubes. It's so cute. And just like all the Christmas lights. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just like the fun winter vibes. Winter here sucks, which we'll talk about later, but it's just like so nice to have a little bit of joy in the
Yeah.
bitter, bitter cold.
So true. I could not agree more.
Okay, so on this positive note, we're going to move into the pros from your guys' feedback on our Instagram story. So if you're not following our Instagram, we will be posting like little boxes that you can put in input or like feedback or these
Yeah.
little answer things that we'll talk about in podcasts because we just want to hear what you guys think too.
Yeah.
So Hunter hasn't looked at all of these. So we're going to be kind of doing like a little blind react type thing.
Scary.
So the pros, I mean, are kind of just basic, but I'll just read through them and we'll just talk about them as we care to, okay?
Okay.
So we've talked about it a ton, but Utah is just so beautiful, and all of the people that replied agree. Like, there was so many that talked about the nature and the hiking, the activities.
Yes.
And it really is true. Like, I think it's my favorite part about living here is, like, it's always beautiful. When I go home, I miss the mountains so much because they're just amazing. And, like, it's not like anywhere else I've been.
Yeah.
It's just so crazy. So some of the things that people said: beautiful place to live, the outdoors are the pro, the mountains, nice views and weather, nature is beautiful and unique, super gorge.
Yeah.
Boom. I love that.
Agree. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. I mean, I think we talked a lot about that, obviously, with like our favorite places and stuff, but it is so true. And I think you can think of so many beautiful places in the world, obviously, but I think what makes Utah unique is that it has so many different types of beauty.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me, that's a big draw, is that I can drive 10 minutes. I can look out my front door and see these beautiful giant mountains, like in the summer covered in trees, in the winter covered in beautiful snow. But then I can drive an hour and a half north and be in the salt flats, where it's literally just white salt for miles and you can't see anything. Or I can go 3 hours south to the desert and red rocks and it looks like Mars. Like, there's just so many different types of
The diversity. Where Utah lacks in diversity of people, it gains in its landscape.
Amen.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a great one. Another one that's kind of related is we have all 4 seasons here,
Yeah.
which I have my mixed feelings about.
Yeah.
I
Let's
really,
dive into
really
that.
hate the cold. It makes me sad and it hurts and I hate it.
Yep.
The activities are super fun, but I don't think it's worth it. That's just my opinion, but
Yeah.
but
You
it,
know
it
I
having the
agree.
4 seasons is fun, but I feel like one in particular just drags out and makes life hellish, and that would be winter. It's so long and miserable, and the other ones are so perfect and lovely, but they're just way shorter.
That's so true, actually. Like, I think about a good spring in Utah, summer, and a fall. It, like, is iconic. They're
Yeah.
so good, like, because there is, like, such a change in the feeling
And they're all
vibe.
so beautiful.
Yes. But winter, you're right. I'm the same as him. Like, I absolutely hate the cold. In fact, when I am cold, like out in the cold, I literally, like, I can't function. It's hard for me to talk.
Same.
Which I know that sounds like
And I'm just
gross
pissed
and
off,
thick
too.
skin. I don't actually care. I'm freezing cold. I don't want to talk to you. Anyway, sorry, but don't like Utah winters. Maybe I would if I start skiing and snowboarding more. So
Yeah.
stay tuned
Maybe we
for
should
when
do that.
we
Take us
start doing
skiing.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, another pro
Wait,
that
sorry. Can I ask you one more
Yeah,
thing about
sorry,
that? What would you say is your favorite season in Utah? Because mine is actually go.
Okay,
first.
so I actually have never lived in Utah during the summer. So I've been here a lot during the summer. This summer I moved home
Oh, you're so
back
right.
to Idaho. And so I came and visited a few times and loved it. It's pretty similar like weather-wise to home, but it's so pretty. Like the mountains are green. It's just like lovely. But I love fall. Fall is I think fall would be my favorite. The mountains are like orange and red and so beautiful. I love fall, I think. And it's still warm, especially this fall was like perfect.
Yeah.
What's your favorite
Fall.
season?
Fall is my favorite. Like literally and I love Utah summers too. And they really are all great besides winter. But fall unlocks like some feeling in you, or at least in me, that like I just can't feel at any other time of the year. Like
well, and
the
like
colors, the
activities that are
vibe.
going on, like
Yes.
football games, Friday night
Yes.
lights.
That's the small town in us. The
Yeah,
Friday
like
night lights.
it's just fall is just a good time to
Oh,
me.
it is. Yeah.
Anyways. Oh my gosh. Okay. Next pro. Soda shops. That a lot of people said that, and
I'm
I agree.
sure. I love.
I
That's so funny,
was
though.
never a soda girly growing up, and I moved to Utah.
Yeah.
And I'm not even joking. I would go to Swig and fill up my 40-ounce Stanley at least once a day of Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
And even when I moved back home, like it was a must every single day.
yeah.
And I've weaned myself off. Oh, I'm doing a little better. Not that it's bad, but it kind of is. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and for those who aren't familiar with why people would say that about Utah, I mean, again, this is where you can maybe draw some comparison in culture to like the church or the religion, or at least the values. Is a lot of people here like don't drink coffee. And so it's kind of known for like soda being the source of people's caffeine.
Yeah.
And because of that, there is so many like soda shop chains that have been built and started in Utah that you will find them basically on every corner.
At least. Like probably more.
And there's some that have gotten so big. Again, this goes back to Utah being kind of like trendy and a
Yeah.
trendsetter. There is some that have gotten huge around the nation. Swig is probably like the most well-known soda shop, but they're opening Swigs all across the country now. And that is one thing that has gone viral on TikTok is all of Swig's little like concoctions that they make
Yeah.
with soda and different. And it really is fun and good, but it's just kind of like a funny quirk of Utah too.
Yeah.
And people associate it with like, oh, because they don't drink coffee. you
Yeah,
know?
which makes sense.
It
honestly.
does, yeah. I mean, it's true, probably. It's accurate.
Yeah.
But
If you think about all the Dutch Bros, Starbucks, coffee shops, like there's just not as many here.
Yeah.
'Cause people don't do it.
so if you want a good little soda cocktail, mocktail, actually, come to Utah. We've
Yeah.
got them.
Yeah. This one I actually love and I totally agree with is safety in Utah. This is something I love about Utah. I have literally never felt unsafe here. Like you can walk around in downtown Salt Lake by yourself at night and like it's safe. Like
Yeah.
I think it's honestly because Utah is such a family-oriented place that like I would feel comfortable like bringing, and I don't have children, but my future children like anywhere with me in Utah. Just like it feels super safe. There's always people looking out for everyone. Just people here are really actually nice. And yeah, I love that about Utah. It's really nice.
Agree. Yeah, it is. It's very safe. I've always felt that growing up. I mean, like, granted, everywhere there's like parts that are like a little more, but when I travel elsewhere outside of Utah, I'm like mind blown. And I like think I take for granted sometimes like that pro of being in Utah. And you're right. I think there is just kind of like a sense of community in
Yeah.
Utah more so than a lot of other places. And I agree. It is a safe place. And I feel like I have so many people here that support me because there is that like sense of community.
Yeah, I love that. So that was all our pros. So let's move on to the cons. Hopefully we can create a space of comfortability and like relation. Like I hope you guys can relate to this and get something out of it. These cons.
Yeah.
I hope it's just not like a negative dump.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one, and this was probably one of the most shared, is the judgment culture. And I think this unfortunately has a lot of ties to the influence that the church has on Utah. And that's really sad to me.
Yeah.
Because I honestly don't think that's the message that is being put out. But unfortunately, after so many years of it being so influential, and very specific standards being so prevalent, anytime anyone isn't doing that exact thing, it sometimes is just really frowned upon.
Yeah.
So
I would
yeah,
agree.
that's just definitely a con.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that there's a lot of like well-intended like messages that have been pushed so much for so long, but unfortunately, like sometimes even though something is well-intended, it does not have that effect. And
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, there is kind of like that. There's this sense of like excelling and meeting requirements and like checking boxes and meeting all of these high expectations that affects Utah and the people in Utah in so many ways. Like, it's interesting because I think that same thing is why Utah produces like a lot of influencers and business owners, and because there's this idea of like, I don't know, yeah, being
Always pushing to be the best.
pushing to be the best,
Yeah.
yes.
Like
But
a
then at the same
competition
time,
almost.
it causes a lot of negative effects as well,
Yeah.
where then people compare themselves so much, or they look down on other people, or they judge other people because they're not living the same standard as them. And so it really is unfortunate that like that happens, but I think that with all these cons and everything, it's so important that we realize like all of these things have to do with just us, with individual people. And so like really making change just starts with you. Like, I will say that while I can see that being a trend like in general in Utah, I've been able to insert myself and find myself in so many spaces of people who create a place where I can just exist as I do and do as I please and feel so loved and feel no judgment, while also like being pushed to accomplish things. And so like it can exist, but it requires like work and kind of being that
Yeah.
person yourself. I think the more that you become that person, you're going to find those other people here.
Yeah. Ugh, that was so good. Thank you for sharing all that, babe.
Yeah.
So there was another one that is pretty similar that I had later in the list, but I'll bring it up now. And we've kind of touched on it, but just like how the high beauty standards, especially for women and girls here, and kind of the beauty and status obsession that I think everyone, including me, like in Utah, it's just so prevalent.
Yeah.
The blonde hair, the really tan, the just like all the things that really there are so many beautiful people. There was a few people that said that as a pro, that like there's
Yeah.
so many like beautiful people here in Utah, which is so true. But also it can cause some issues or some sad feelings.
Yeah. It actually does make me sad just thinking about that, because I completely agree. I have fallen into this for sure. And I think most people, especially most young people in Utah, like that has just become such a big part of the culture, is like meeting some standard of physical beauty, that it makes me so sad for individuals who just like feel like they don't have that. Like,
Yeah, me too.
because I've just realized that beauty looks so different and it comes in so many different forms. I think that in Utah, there is like one specific type of beauty, I guess, that is so prevalent and common that has become the standard of beauty. And so anyone outside of that feels like they aren't. And like,
Yeah.
it's really sad, like the mental hoops that they have to go through to kind of gain confidence. And I've been there too. Like,
Yeah.
I've struggled with a lot of that, the confidence, especially like going to college. Like, I'll be honest, in my little high school that I went to, I was like, yeah, I'm confident.
Yeah, you were.
You know? But it's like a tiny town. But once you like get out in the world, and like I'm in college now, and there's so many people, and I'm just like, holy, like,
Hunter, you're still the hottest one.
thanks, babe. But yeah, sorry, I rambled about that, but it is just sad
yeah.
and unfortunate, and I don't know what needs to change. But just know this: if you're listening, you are beautiful. I am such a big believer in the fact that every single person created is beautiful, and your experiences are beautiful, and everything about you is beautiful. And I know it's hard to feel that sometimes, but we
Yeah.
really think so. And there are a lot of people who think that about you. So it's finding those people that I think is a priority for me.
That's
for
the
you,
best
for
thing
everyone.
you can do.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, babe. That was so well said. You're on fire.
Oh, thanks. You're
Okay,
on fire.
so this one was both a pro and a con. So
Ooh,
we can
this
decide
is
what we
interesting.
think.
Okay.
Dating culture.
Oh,
So this was surprising to me, but a lot of people said this as a pro of living in Utah.
that does shock me.
Just that, and they were mostly people, the ones that I know personally are mostly people that aren't from Utah, saying that it's so awesome that dating is so casual. And like people go on so many dates and just want to have fun, which I agree. It was the same back at home too, I think, where it is just a lot more casual. And I think that's another like church influence thing.
Yeah.
Because I really think that it's like encouraged to like just date, which I love. I think that's super fun.
Yeah.
Not as much for gay people.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's actually really interesting because I probably just growing up here and being gay, obviously, it's a whole separate thing that we could go into. But most of my life, I'll be honest, because of standards and things, and we'll probably dive into this much later, I tried so hard to just be straight and think straight and live straight. And so because of that, I still feel like I got a sense of like the straight dating culture. But also I have so many friends who, talk about it. And so I mostly have thought of it in a negative light, but I think seeing it from that perspective, like that's so true.
Yeah.
It is just like common and fun. And that's just like what you do at this age is like you go on dates a lot. And I could see how in other places, maybe it's
Yeah, for sure.
a lot different.
Mm-hmm. I think, I don't know what you were just about to say, sorry.
No, go ahead, babe.
I think we're going to talk about our specific experiences with dating in the LGBTQ community. Not really specifically in Utah, but just in general in another episode. So if you're
Yes.
curious, like we'll get into it more later.
Yes.
But we're just kind of talking about in general in Utah
Yeah.
dating culture.
Yeah. And I think it'd be helpful maybe for us to share now, like, why we would initially think of it as a con. Like, what are some of the reasons
Yeah.
that in our minds, like, it did shock us a little bit that people said that was a pro? So I don't know. What would you say maybe like from your friends or things you've witnessed, like, that's
Yes,
hard about
definitely.
dating culture?
Well, there's a very long list of why it's hard being gay in Utah dating, but just in general, I think because it's so casual, it's really hard to know people's intentions. Is what I have found to be the hardest thing. Like literally, I feel like you have to ask what their long-term expectations are. Literally, the first time you meet them.
Yeah.
Because I've like, no offense to these people if they're listening, but like people are like offended on like the second date when I'm like, no, I don't want to be your boyfriend.
Yeah. This is a really funny thing to say.
But I don't know. I just feel like that was like kind of crazy for me. I was not used to that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I was thinking, but
Yeah, I would agree. I think for me, it's just like looking at all my friends and their experiences. And I think there's so many factors that go into dating here and the culture and all of that. But I think there is such a big lack of commitment, but also, I don't know, like, because it is so casual as well, people treat it like a game. And I've just witnessed that, like the people treating it like a game from firsthand experiences, but also a lot of my friends and their experiences. And I think remembering that like these are human beings and people have strong emotions, and those emotions like when in dating can be very strong. And so
yeah.
when it's treated too casually, like so many people get really, really hurt, and then it causes even more issues. And so that's just a cycle that I have seen with a lot of my friends and dating here is like one person being like serious and the other just treating it like, again, like it's a game, and that is not healthy.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that. I totally 100% agree. And again, we'll go into more maybe personal experiences and stuff in a later episode. Okay, this one is a little controversial, maybe.
Okay.
And it kind of goes along with this, but just the maybe discrimination or sensitivity or the lack thereof of people in the LGBTQ plus community, specifically those individuals who are transgender, which breaks my heart for them.
Yep.
So we got one specific submission that I wanted to read.
Okay.
And it's, I don't live there in Utah, but my nephew who is transitioning has to come to LA for gender affirming care. And so we were kind of talking about this one before, but I think it's just very important to note that something that is very big in Utah is that it's super conservative. And so the policies definitely reflect that.
Yeah.
Which for people like this person, that's really hard. I mean, that would alter your life.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No, I agree. It's sad, really, and I am so confident saying that, like, at its core, the whole the argument, I guess, or debate about the LGBTQ plus community and their existence and choices in general, that is a very like sensitive thing for a lot of people and a lot of people here in Utah. But I will just confidently say that everyone deserves to make the choices that they want to make and live the way that they want to live. And so it is sad that people don't feel like they can do that here. And I think, again, like you said, that reflects on the fact that this is a conservative state and a lot of the policies are conservative. Obviously, again, the church's influence and like the doctrine and teachings can cause people to become like discriminatory as well and judgmental. Like, I think that is maybe what makes me even more sad about Utah sometimes, is not even at like the policy level, but just like the individual experiences that people have, like getting made fun of, or and I guess maybe that's because that's personal to me. I mean, I experienced a lot of that. But again, that goes back to the high standards and the judgment and all of that. But I will also say this, and need to say that I have found some of the most amazing, supportive people ever in Utah. I mean,
same here.
Yeah, and in the church. And so luckily there's a lot of amazing people who have done that.
There really, really has been. Since Hunter and I have started dating, we really have not had much negative in our relationship, like with other people. Everyone has been so loving and kind. And we're here in Utah. And so it can happen.
Yeah.
For those of you who are also in the LGBTQ plus community here, like it can work and you can be happy. And I wish that everyone knew that. And it was easy because we really have been lucky. We have a good group of people that we're around that have made it easy.
Yeah.
And not everyone is lucky enough to have that. So.
Yes.
Okay, so this is going to be our last con, a little more lighthearted.
There you go.
Let's talk about the Utah drivers. Hunter is pretty strong about this one. Something about him is he has a little bit or a lot of bit of road rage at times. And it's cute, but also a little bit scary. So beware if
Your
you
real
see
feelings come out
the silver Honda Accord Sport driving past you.
Yeah, I do want to say something about this, and I will be the first to admit that, yes, I am very passionate when I drive, and Utah drivers get a really bad rap, and probably for good reason. It is pretty bad. And it's interesting because while I consider myself to be an extremely good driver, maybe like I am part of the problem, but I'm very similar to my dad. Like, I grew up in a really small time. Shout out to Randy. He is like one of the best drivers I know. I am so confident anytime I'm in a car with him. And that's hard for me because I am a control freak, especially when it comes to driving. If I'm going anywhere with my friends or people, I always love to drive. Otherwise, I just like am worrying. But with my dad, I don't care. And that's saying something because he drives crazy. Like he's a very aggressive driver.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
get that
I
from him.
think it's just like comes from the confidence of like knowing what you're doing and like feeling so confident that you're like, oh my gosh, I can make it in this little gap. Like, of course we're going to be fine. Taking
Yeah.
risks, I guess.
So I think that you and everyone else in Utah just have that feeling in common.
Exactly.
So you
But
hear it from
the
a
thing
Utahn,
is-
and you can see their perspective.
Yeah, but you got to know that a lot of people aren't actually good. And I will say I am actually good. And I will stand by that. But yeah, no, I think my biggest beef with Utah drivers is just going slow in the slow lane. The amount of times a day I am just yelling at other cars, and that's so sad, I know. And it's something I want to work on. And I will not lie when I say that I have actually started crying when I get so mad and listen. And then I pass the car and it's like a sweet old grandma or like
And you're
this
screaming at
16-year-old girl who you can tell just got her license and she's like this, like so nervous.
She's crying because
She's
you were
crying
like
because I
being
probably
so
like
scary.
honked at her. That's so sad.
It's okay though. We're all allowed to have that.
Yeah.
I think it's okay.
Yeah.
So
But stay safe
I don't
out
know
there.
if this, really, truly stay safe. Don't be too crazy, you Utah people.
Do you feel like it's a lot different than Idaho?
Honestly, not a ton different,
Okay.
but I do notice a difference in Utah and here.
And would
Or
you
in
say,
Utah and
I
Idaho.
actually am curious, would you say the difference is like you notice people just do crazy stuff, or is it more like everyone drives slow or everyone
It's
drives
the
fast?
speed here. Everyone drives so much faster.
Yeah.
I
okay.
am like always like 5 over type of person.
Yeah.
But the speed limit is lower in Idaho, most
Yeah.
places, than it is here. But also like people will literally be going 20 over like, casually.
Yes.
And I'm like, that's not a thing.
Yes. Okay, you're so right. I think like you could
I think that
literally
is probably
sum it
the
up
biggest
to-
problem, is that everyone is
people
way
are
too
in
fast.
such a rush in Utah. And like the Utah Valley especially,
Yeah.
it's growing so much that the roads are so clogged and everyone wants to get home and everyone's just in a hurry. So
Yeah. Which is
I
okay,
would
but it just
agree.
causes a little bit of congestion, which is whatever.
Yeah. It pisses me off. I hate that shit. Hate it.
We all do. Okay. Well, those are all of our cons. Thank you for everyone who submitted something. We loved to hear your opinion, and we couldn't have come up with all this stuff on our own. So
Yeah.
you guys are perfect in every way for doing that. So thanks.
Yeah, we love you. And we're so excited to keep doing this and
Yeah.
get your feedback for future episodes. We're gonna end this one. I have to pee so bad.
too.
So we're gonna just sprint on down to the bathroom.
Yeah.
But we love you and thank you again for listening.
Bye.
Bye.